And it's just unfortunate because we want to make sure that we keep people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're also making it impossible for them to live there.
Welcome back to the Common Liberty Podcast. I'm Jeffrey.
I'm Eric.
And today is July the 9th, 2026. Today we have a very special guest, Kristy Gnibus. Dr. Gnibus is the current commissioner of the Erie County Human Relations Commission and brings to the table a lot of experience as a public servant, as an advocate, and will definitely share some interesting opinions today. So let's load the clip. Kristy, can you tell us a little bit about your journey as a public servant, a public school teacher, and how that brought you here now?
Yeah, so I became a mom pretty young. I was 20 years old when I gave birth to my first daughter. During that experience, I was also diagnosed with ovarian cancer. So that was a shocking part of my life because it really kind of threw me into how important government really was. So I was not only a struggling single mom, I was also navigating cancer and all the services that go along with that. And I was lucky that I was able to navigate and get the services I needed and come out, the better, on the right side of things there. But I think that was like what maybe started to kind of spark something. Like, this is really important. There are so many people, and I was very lucky. And I was, like I said, lucky that I can navigate a very confusing world of services. There are so many services out there, as many of you know. Getting them, can be really tricky for some people. But I was able to navigate that, and I think benefited from the services, childcare, WIC, food stamps, the things I needed to be a mom and successful at, finishing my degree to become a teacher. And then I became a public school teacher, joined the union, saw that side of politics, right?
All right.
And actually one of my first interactions with the political things at a larger level than just my district was in Gettysburg. Teachers go to Gettysburg, choose to if you want, go to Gettysburg, and that's where I met Sam Tallarico.
Oh, wow.
Who loves to dance and have a good time, and he was really very active in the political world. And
Also a teacher.
And also a teacher, and I just decided I really want to be active in my union and advocate for the rights, the workers' rights of the teachers and the things like that, and the students, of course, too. And then I bought my first home pretty young, too, and that was also because of something that the government was offering. That was in 2008 when you got the rebate. And so I was able to buy my first home in the city of Erie, and I reached out to somebody who was involved in politics at that time, and actually became an advisory board member for the HRC. So I've been, I was involved then, and then started involved in other things, started going to party events, like Erie Democratic events, and to try to keep it short, because could be a long story because it's my life, but.
What was your first teaching assignment?
Oh, my first teaching assignment. I ended up teaching at the school that I graduated high school from. That was Seneca High School. So very rural, very, small school. I was just teaching alongside my teachers, which was weird. I was like, hey, remember when you gave me detention? So that's cool. But it was actually really a mostly overall pleasant experience.
What part of the state is that in? Is it up here in Erie or?
Wattsburg?
Wattsburg, okay.
You know Wattsburg? If you're going to the fair.
Right, right. 89 South.
I'm from Westmoreland County.
Okay, yep.
And, I could imagine going in there and then seeing all your old teachers.
Yeah.
God, that would be a nightmare for me. I didn't have a good experience in school, so I was just like, no, stay away from me. But I could imagine that would be absolutely petrifying at times.
I was mostly a pretty good kid. You know, I had my detentions and, you know, in-school suspensions, which sounds very like, whoa, what did you do? But I feel like at that point in time, if you did something like even skipped a class, that's what you got. So I was a pretty, you know, I was a people pleaser in high school. So I got along with most of my teachers. So it wasn't too weird. Because I wasn't like a standout student to them. Like, because I wasn't like, do you know what I mean? I wasn't a standout because I wasn't like valedictorian, but I also wasn't, you know, in trouble all the time. I was like doing my work, you know, getting mostly good grades, going through the things, doing what I like, hanging out with my friends, and then working and whatnot. So I would say I was mostly unnoticed.
How do you think schools have changed since you were a student in high school and the kind of teaching experience you see in classes more recently?
I think that inclusion has become a much larger issue that teachers are rightfully so required to follow than when I was in school. Anyone that learned differently or that was different in any capacity was almost always pulled out when I was a student, right? And now as a teacher, we're very much incorporating inclusion in everything that we do, which I think is a very good thing.
And since July is Disability Advocacy Month, there's a lot of emphasis on what teachers can do to make a positive impact with their
absolutely.
students.
Absolutely. And so going from a school like, if you were at a small, it was a small school.
I actually went to the township I came from is actually considered. They actually compare it most to Mill Creek.
Okay, so it's a little bit larger
it's
than
Hempfield School District. So it has about 47,000 people in the townships, which is pretty close to the 53.
Sure.
They actually use the same blue and white.
Really?
The school has like the same brick.
Yeah.
Like at a glance, you're like, it's almost there's a little bit of some problems there with it, but besides the point. So I actually went to a big school like Mill Creek that had all these resources.
Sure.
Put way too much emphasis on football.
Oh, yes, of course.
You know, but I was a learning support student through most of my time in public school. And I was that student that was a problem that was plucked out of the class. And they kind of put you in a class with a bunch of other kids who have no disabilities in common.
Sure.
Right?
It's just
so like I was in there and I'm like, I struggle with writing. You know, I struggle getting things from my head to my brain. It's my processing speed disorder. They didn't really know how to handle that. But like a kid with pretty severe autism was in there.
Right.
You know, there was a kid that couldn't read in there. And like, how am I supposed to learn when the teacher's like trying to teach a kid how to read? You know, and I can read fine. I was reading the newspaper in there every day. And I could definitely see how that was frustrating. So it's very exciting to see that there is more inclusion and pushing for this. One of the big things I always push for is better teacher pay, of course. Better teacher pay. I just want to pump schools with as many teachers as humanly possible. I want it to be a system where we are preparing our youth for a great amount of success. And I think the best way to do that, honestly, is start by reducing class sizes and increasing the amount of extra teachers or paras in the room. And give teachers the ability to focus on students at that individual level while also working in a class. I've looked a lot into this.
School security is something that is a brand new, I shouldn't say a brand new issue, but when I went to elementary, junior high, high school, the biggest concern was there going to be a fight in the hallway, or out in the parking lot. But now there's metal detectors and clear backpacks and locker checks and things like that, and sometimes even, armed security guards or police officers, stationed at a school. It's a very different world the last, 26, 27 years since Columbine, especially,
Yeah,
and
I was
Sandy
in high
Hook.
school when that happened.
Yeah.
So that would be something probably that I would say also shaped my views politically. Coming from a rural area, I grew up, for the most part, on this 100-acre plot of land. Hunting was big, four-wheeling. We hung out in the woods, but there's a certain thought process about guns in the rural community. But experiencing Columbine as a high school student and then becoming a teacher and then having kids of my own, I feel very differently about guns than I think someone would think. Somebody that graduated from Seneca would think about guns. So that's something too.
And especially you're pretty close to my age, if I remember correctly. But, experiencing Columbine, and then we had to experience all the shootings after that, and it was so, you were, starting to, it was a weird experience, because, I remember in school, when I started high school, we were allowed to walk outside.
Yeah.
And then that stopped my 10th grade year. And then, it slowly got more and more. I was, happy to get out of there. But, yeah, it was pretty wild to see. And then hearing about what happened afterwards from friends and people who ended up working there, it's just continuing to get more and more security focused. But also, I don't know. You think it's not always as great as it should be, because they're still dealing with budgets that that aren't enough.
Right, and it's unfortunate that's even a focus. That's what bothers me. It's I don't want to focus on security because we shouldn't have to be. Why is that even something that we have to be focusing on? It's a bigger issue that we've not been able to face.
That part of indoctrination even goes back to the 50s and the Cold War and the nuclear threat, stop, drop, and roll,
Sure.
What's that actually going to accomplish?
Right.
But it puts this mindset on the students. And then we have something like 9/11 happen, and everyone becomes hyper-aware about what could happen. So your journey as a public school teacher kind of led you to a bigger opportunity a couple years ago as a candidate. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I was getting re-involved in the party and trying to figure out what that was going to look like for me. I didn't know where I would fit in, but I knew I wanted to do something, and I felt very passionately about a lot of different policies. And I remember just writing down all the things I cared about and trying to fit where the change could happen the most. What would make the most sense for me? And that's what kind of led me to the thought about running against Mike Kelly. And then meeting with some folks about that and realizing, wait, maybe this could be a thing. I could do this. We were coming off of 2018, where a lot of really strong progressive women won elections, and I thought, this could be a really great year. 2020 did not turn out the way that I think most Democrats hoped it would have, but it was still an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything, and it deeply changed the person that I am today, for sure.
What did you learn about the district as a whole? And that what was up here in Erie's much different from some of the more rural counties, and these are some very rural counties that surround that are in this district. Which house district is it? I can't remember.
16.
16. Okay.
Yeah.
I get all the state and the federal ones mixed up, and
Yeah.
I just
They don't want us. They don't want us to make it easy for us at all.
It goes all the way to Butler. Why is that?
Yep.
It's a large district, but it's by population, right? And everyone's talking about how do you draw 16 in a way that's favorable to the county, Erie County. I don't know that there's a way that it would look. And we talk about gerrymandering. I mean, if we draw it the way that would make it more blue, it would look pretty, and to me, it would look gerrymandered for a
Yeah.
Democrat. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just so tough.
I think it's especially tough with how the state lines are too, because like if we were in New York or Ohio, we could be more in that Buffalo or Cleveland
Sure.
type stuff.
Yeah.
Where it might make a little more sense, but we're just this little nub. We're like a little special piece of land just
Yeah.
so Pennsylvania could have access to
Port.
the lake,
Yeah.
the port on the Great Lakes. And it kind of makes it a little bit... Erie is because once you drive out into Erie, it's hills and Pennsylvania scenery.
Yeah.
And that has to be an interest. And then once you go south, you're getting like the suburbs of Pittsburgh and all the
Right.
Yeah. So definitely an interesting district to try and run in.
It was. I always looked at everything between Erie and Butler as just a really rural and mostly neglected area of the district. And there could be so much that could be done for that area. Population's declining there. It's like services lack there. Funding is lacking there. And unfortunately, the majority of the folks I've ever, not all of them, but the majority, were just unwilling. And that's, I guess, something that you could talk about still happening is it doesn't matter what you say to the folks. They are going to vote for the party that they think is serving them. So I would assume, I go to these fairs and I go to these events and these different areas, the southern parts of the district, and their questions would always be like, well, are you a Democrat or a Republican? And almost immediately, I want to be like, does it matter? But it does. They cared. And as soon as they found out I was a Democrat, it was very much like, you get some people, but not enough to change. I'm only one person. And even with all the volunteers I could get, you're not going to be able to change enough people's minds. And you could win Erie handily, which up until this last, PA16 race, all the Democrats have won Erie. But without making big moves in those other counties, it's just impossible.
Yeah, for me, I've always thought, the best thing to help rural counties is to try and find unique solutions to their problems. Another one is services. Like you said it, and growing up and seeing just how in access to services, and how some nonprofits aren't able to extend as far as they would have hoped and stuff. So I think, for Justin Wagner, if he's listening, trying to figure out solutions that really get to the core issues of people's problems out there, I think that's absolutely instrumental. But that's also what I think is happening a lot in this country at the moment. Like, we're really focusing on policy that is going to help the people.
Right, yeah. That's what you hope all people that get into these positions do.
You mentioned there was a lot of new faces elected in 2018 that gave people hope, like Sandy Cortez in New York City and Ilhan Omar. Okay. And then we've seen yourself as a candidate in PA16, Ron DiNicola, Dan Pastore, Rick Tellez, and we go all the way back to Kathy Dahlkemper as the last time somebody from Erie, and that's 14 years ago or more since Kathy represented us in PA16. What do you think was the biggest issue of that campaign?
Of whose campaign?
Your campaign.
Oh, the biggest issue for my campaign? COVID, unfortunately. I started out the campaign in 19, no COVID. Hit the ground running, was everywhere. Had a great plan to be very grassroots on the ground, while still doing the things like raising the money, because whether anyone likes it or not, you have in that large of a district to share any of the messaging that about solutions to that large of a mass, you need money to do that. You got to reach them, whether it be by phone, by TV, by radio, by mail, by whatever, by volunteers or paid canvassers, whatever it is, money. But I think COVID really just changed everything. Nationally, for not just the messaging, but the ability for candidates who wanted to run campaigns like I did. How did you move forward with that?
Yeah, it's hard to run a grassroots campaign when, the grassroots people are the most concerned about the disease as well.
Right.
And are just like, let's take a step back.
No, don't. There was a period of time where we were like explicitly told you are not to knock doors, and then they realized, if we don't do something, then we're going to lose big. So then they allowed us to knock doors, and they gave us a whole protocol of knock doors, and then step way back, and then wait. And it was just a process of how we had to do it, but it was just still not.
Yeah, and I mean, knocking doors is what Zoran won with. Like, that's the biggest thing that is getting the most attention is straight up door knocking.
So many
good old fashioned
volunteers.
door knocking.
But
and
how do you do that in such a big, vast area like PA-16?
Oh, that's what's definitely hard.
Yeah.
You definitely need people, and that's what makes it tough. And like, granted, I do think Justin's doing a good job, but like, he has a bunch of access to do things that you didn't because COVID. Like,
right.
I think right now he's doing a town hall. Town hall would have been like,
my gosh.
during COVID.
I did get to debate Kelly. I mean, almost every candidate usually does on his terms, almost always. But that was still weird, too. We had to be so far apart. We weren't allowed. Like, it was just, everything was just different. It was just such a different experience. I wouldn't take it back at all. Like I said, it really, like, it let me see behind the curtain, which unfortunately maybe because life has been pretty difficult since then because I couldn't look away after that. That's why I stayed involved. Where a lot of people will run, and if they lose, they're just like, I'm done with this. I don't know how you could see what you see as a candidate and be done. Do you know what I mean? There's just so much to do.
That's how I usually go home and say that. I'm like, I just need to stop. No, how can you not? How can, just like, how do I stop doing that after I know that,
It starts when you're a news junkie. And then you're like, I want to do something about that. And you get involved and you see how much more there is to do to be involved in many other places.
And you start understanding all the nuance and all that little stuff.
Yeah.
One of the community groups you became an advocate for is SafeNet here in Erie. Can you talk a little bit about your involvement with SafeNet?
Yeah. So I actually am a domestic abuse survivor myself, and SafeNet was the agency that was able to help me. And they made what I thought a really complicated and one of the most scary situations of my life really easy in a way. And that was so important to me. And I talked about that very openly for years after I went through that. And then I had an opportunity. They asked if I'd like to be on the board, and I said yes, of course. I want to do everything I can to be helpful. Though I'm not on the board anymore, I'm a huge advocate for SafeNet. It's the only agency that we have that specifically addresses domestic violence. And, it provides housing, and it's incredibly inclusive, which I think is really great. And, it's just an amazing asset that we have that here in Erie County.
Even getting survivors of domestic violence connected to agencies like Adagio and similar sorts of agencies to help fill in the places that somebody can't access as a result of those very difficult situations. Just getting a post office box set up for someone who's got to relocate so that the police receive the mail in Harrisburg, they go through it, and then what's acceptable gets sent back on to the person here in Erie.
Yeah.
And there's so many details in protecting somebody's confidentiality that's critical.
Absolutely. Honestly, there's just so many services and so many facets to an organization like SafeNet. I'm hopeful that the community can continue to support SafeNet. It's always a fear of mine that there are so many great services and everyone's asking Everyone's asking for money and for help, and we all want these services to flourish and to continue and to grow. And it's always a concern that I hope that SafeNet is one that does, because it's always, I remember being a board member, it's always something we're thinking about. How can we make sure that we can continue funding? There was a period of time where there was no, especially when the budget was stalled for however long, and there's funding that was drying up. And, you know, we're doing great, or I say we're, you know, SafeNet is doing great now, but we want to keep that happening. So how do we keep SafeNet and other agencies like that on the forefront of people's minds when it comes to support?
You probably heard the news recently that the Erie City Mission got permission from the Mill Creek Township Supervisors and the Erie Catholic Archdiocese to convert the Mount Carmel former school on East Grandview into a shelter for women and their children. And maybe SafeNet and Erie City Mission can partner on some of those things, because the City Mission is always at like 99% capacity.
Absolutely.
And it's a critical issue. And then you add in the layer of domestic violence and what it takes to survive that, and how long it takes to reestablish somebody's life, you know, coming out of that situation. Hopefully Erie City Mission and SafeNet can develop some
partnerships. I think all of our community can benefit from a little bit more partnership. There also sometimes I worry that there's like everyone's, like I said, always asking. There's almost like a competition between a lot of these nonprofits, which is unfortunate in some ways, right? Like, because we all of these services serve somebody, right? And so how can we, you know what I mean? How can we make this work for everyone instead of competing against each other?
The cookie jar is only so big.
Right.
I mean, one of the big things I got involved in Erie was because of my experience at nonprofits and just how chaotic and how that made everything worse, you know? And like, you know, I have someone like that, a blended case manager that's just like specifically there to navigate all of this. And I'm already knowledgeable about it, and we're like working together, and it is very complex. And like, I think one of the things I think a lot about is how do we simplify this to help more people so we can use these services more effectively.
Yeah.
And actually, like, you know, make sure that the money going towards stuff that, you know, because if the citizens are not seeing this money go to work, like, this is kind of why rural people are like,
right,
I don't want these they're like, you don't want to pay for these services? And they're like, I don't have any access to them. What does it affect me? They're just like, well, you'll only save $20. And I'm like, I would love $20. Like, and for some people, they're just like trying to comprehend that in their head. And I'm like, no, they're saying they want services. Like, but they're frustrated. And that's something that I really understand. And just trying to navigating it is tough.
It's very difficult.
Well, one popular issue recently in Mill Creek about services and navigating are the bike lanes along Green Garden Boulevard that some residents wanted, other residents did not want. And you related an experience recently about sidewalks in Mill Creek, closer to the bayfront. Can you tell us a little bit about what you experienced with the sidewalks?
So I live on 6th Street, right across from Scott Park. And at that, I don't have sidewalks. I'm right on 6th Street, no sidewalks. Across the street is Scott Park, no sidewalks. You go a little further down, and there's like a divot that goes in right in front of Tracy Elementary, and there's sidewalks there. And those go about 2 blocks, and then no sidewalk again. And then Mill Creek just put in sidewalks from Pittsburgh to about a block until they connect. So there's actually sidewalk. Now, you could probably walk, I don't know how far, all the way from the east side of Erie on 6, all the way across Pittsburgh, and then you get to one little block, less than a block, a house, no sidewalk. So it's really frustrating for me because I have to take my 2-year-old, we walk all the time, and run across the busy street where there's no sidewalk, walk across or walk along the side of the street where bikes are going to, because Sixth Street is a very like heavy bike
Yeah.
place. So I'm trying to like get through that, then get to in front of Tracy where there is sidewalk, but then I get stuck grass, and then on the other side of the grass is more sidewalk. The planning, it seemed like it wasn't fully thought out. Something happened, I would think. Was it money ran out? I don't know. It's such a small little plot of land that could have just been to connect the sidewalks. It's really just like, why didn't we connect this? And they just spent, I'm assuming, a lot of money, or got a grant for a lot of money. And really, it's just frustrating when this accessibility, it was so exciting. I was somebody who was very excited for the sidewalk.
Uh-huh.
And then I feel like let down. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so now I have to go onto the street again. So I'm taking my 2-year-old dangerously on the street just so I can get to the other side, so I can get on the sidewalk. I just feel like there wasn't a lot of forethought there.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I feel about a lot of things.
We talked about the flooding and the city planning.
There's the
with
flooding, and then, we have the giant decaying a Kmart in the center of town.
Yeah, that's such a complicated issue, isn't it? It's weird.
It's like, from what I can understand, is it's basically held on to by private equity.
Yeah.
And they're looking for the right time to sell it. So they're just going to like sell it back to the town probably at just like
There's like a super long
absolutely
lease.
an extortionate
Wasn't it like 100
amount.
years or something crazy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
apparently we needed to like divide land in Mill Creek like Hong Kong. But like, why don't you put into the lease if you're not using it? Like, you have to, like, you can't
Right.
leave it abandoned for more than 12 months.
Right.
You know?
I'm surprised there's not some. There must be something, but I don't know what that would be. Safety, is that not an issue in terms of the building?
Yeah, I mean,
it-
I'm sure it's leaking and
Yeah.
a mosquito farm by
Sure.
now.
The winter we had last year,
Oh, I can
I'm sure,
imagine.
yeah, all that on the roof, nobody's maintaining it regularly. So,
And, it's frustrating to see a lot of money go into projects and not some of the basic infrastructure we need, you know. I live in Mill Creek. I am disabled, and, I worry about rent going up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, we have, there's a lot of housing planned, but like, some of the other stuff that's going on that has Erie insurance involved, like the flagship food hall and the flagship living, they're charging $1,100 for a studio apartment. And
That doesn't- yeah.
and I'm just like, is this going to increase the amount of housing, or is it just going to make everyone go, ooh, I can raise the rent?
Yeah, that's. Yeah, I'm not the expert on this. Actually, my husband is way more versed in affordable housing, and that's one of the things that he's really passionate about happening in Mill Creek, and making sure that, because when we just like to look, right? Like, I'll like bring up the map and see what houses are for sale, which there's not
I
a
was
lot.
doing that last night.
And I'm just like, what? That place over there that's like 900 square feet is going for 350,000. Who can buy that? Who can like? What is happening? And rent is also skyrocketing, and it's just unfortunate because we want to make sure that we keep people, right? But we're also making it impossible for them to live there, right?
Yeah, and I think we need to focus sometimes more on new systems and structures that we haven't explored in the past, that we keep going to the same system over and over again. We see it's not working. Let's try some of these new systems and structures. Let's try and bring some of this housing cost down, instead of just focusing on business and thinking everything else will fix itself.
Yeah.
Because this trickle-down style of economics doesn't seem to be working. Let's
No.
fix the community. And I think once we do that, businesses are going to be screaming to come in.
Yeah.
Because what do businesses want? They want stability and good places to live
Right.
and good schools for their employees' kids,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% with you on that. Yeah.
with all your different experience as a teacher, as a public servant, as a candidate for public office, what are some of the solutions that you think Erie should really latch onto?
Community-based initiatives. I'm not sure I have the solutions. And even if I did, I have concerns that they would matter. So something that my husband and I talk about a lot, he's an attorney. So, I mean, he has a lot of knowledge that I don't have about law and how different things work, like nonprofits and these, community agreements and tax and bonds and all of these things. And you can have the best ideas, but you just kind of said it earlier, is you have to get people to buy in. That's the biggest struggle I find, is how do you change somebody? The folks that can change things don't have a reason to do that. They're already benefiting from the system. The people with the money, the large corporations that we have here, right, or nonprofits that we have here, such as the hospitals, UPMC, whatnot, they already have everything they want. And the things that they do work for them, and we need them because we need their buy-in. They're a lot of them are the gatekeepers. That goes for politicians too. If things are working for the politicians and they're able to do what they do and everyone's like, oh yeah, great, clap, 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 reelected, what pushes them to change things? So you can have the solutions, and I'm not sure I have them. There are lots of great ideas, but I think it's the system that we have to try to figure out how to change, and how do we actually have progress when you have the same gatekeepers closing that gate.
And I totally agree. The systems and structures and the way we've been doing things don't seem to be working. And
That's a great point about the gatekeepers and the NGO organizations, the nonprofits that receive these grants from foundations and so forth. And to contrast that with the success of Lucky's Speed Checks. Sure. An individual business owner who started with one convenience store gas station where gasoline is the loss leader,
right,
and then everything inside the convenience store is what he's making his living off of. But he's gone from one location to half a dozen or more locations, especially on the east side, but other places. And that's an interesting contrast between what the nonprofits and the community benefit organizations can achieve, and what an individual with a certain kind of ambition can still achieve in Erie.
Yeah, it's still tough. I did, after my run for Congress, COVID was still lingering, and it was still a thing. But I was really hungry, and I saw all these different people that promised all this help and things like that. I was actually looking at starting my own business. I did every single boot camp you could think of. I've gone to did the SPD, everything.
First Step Seminar.
All of them. I did all of them. I have binders of all these different things I've done. I've had all these meetings and all of these hopes. But the thing is, without the seed, without the yes or the help to get past that first hurdle, it's impossible. I had the plan, I did all of the things, but I didn't have the capital. And at that time, I was a single person. Even if I put my house up, I was still not granted. It's too risky. It's too risky. So it could have been you know what I mean? There's all these people that want to do something like he did, right? But where's the investment for these folks? When you do these boot camps, they'll show you ways to get the flagship money. You're talking $200, maybe $1,000, maybe $2,000. That's not enough money. That's your legal fees to maybe do a couple things.
To incorporate.
Yes.
LLC.
Now I need to I need to open up shop.
Inventory.
I need inventory, right? And so it's just it makes it really difficult,
Yeah, and I mean, I personally would love to see, reduced rents for a lot. We have all these businesses that are struggling to keep by to pay, their employees a decent wage, and a lot of times it's just getting exploited by someone who can take advantage of a space that the community absolutely needs.
Right.
And these storefronts, and then there's also, storefronts that might not make much money, but might be so culturally relevant, maybe
Yes.
like a cultural grocery store,
Yes.
or, maybe it's a dog groomer that,
Sure.
something that doesn't make much money and it isn't going to be able to pay a lot, but we still need it in the community. If we had a little bit more control of through maybe, land trusts or something,
Sure.
or some of these shop spaces that are owned by the community, we could actually serve the community better.
Yeah.
There are several businesses in Erie that are contributing to how Erie is reinventing itself. And we think of places like Ember and Forge or Tipsy Bean or Herbs and Honey Bakery.
Oh, yeah.
Those are really great restaurants. There's a couple new ones downtown that have caught people's attention. Marley's Island and Saigon Nights. There's almost every cuisine you could imagine here in Erie.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a great benefit. So, moving forward, what kinds of things do you think Erie must do to reinvent itself? We think about the Bayfront. We think about Presque Isle.
That's such a tough one because I go in circles about what is the right answer here. What I do know is that we need to make sure that Erie is livable for the folks that are here, but we also need to find a way to attract more people. And I think, Eric touched on that a little bit. How do we get people to want to live here or businesses to want to come here, right? And I think, that's obviously such a generic answer, but, that's it. I think that it's great that we're looking at how to improve some of the things we're doing, like what's happening on the Bayfront and what that's going to look like. But we are so quick to just do something without looking at the big picture of how that's going to impact us in 5, 10, 15 years. And I worry because that's when the change is going to happen, if it's going to happen. We talk all the time, if it's now, we need to do something now. What are we doing now, to make Erie a better place for the people that live here and for people to come here? I know people say this all the time, but I have 2 teenage girls, and I don't know that they're going to stay in Erie. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what's for them here. I don't know.
I understand. Don't get me wrong. There are good industries in Erie. There's, I found out recently there's even a video game development, Whitethorn Games, that seem pretty cool. Not really my style of game, but
Sure.
still
So
really cool
neat.
that we have
Yes.
a little studio.
Yeah.
And, I just think that, to make Erie the place that we need to be, we need to take care of our people,
Yeah.
Who's gonna, we're talking about all this stuff on the Bayfront, why are people gonna want to move here when Miss Charnel is going up in city council talking about the massive rat problem we're having?
Oh gosh, yes.
And
yeah.
Landlords that are living in Florida and just don't show up to their property and until they just fall down. And we need to take control of what is in our community and let it being taken advantage of by outside capital, I guess. Outside money, big interest groups, stuff like that.
We definitely have a housing issue here.
Yep.
In many, many capacities.
Housing is one of the issues that we talked about at the panel discussion hosted by the Human Relations Commission last September. And in your role as the commissioner of the Human Relations Commission here in Erie County, what are some of the most important issues or the most significant cases that you've seen come across?
Oh gosh. The majority of the calls I get are almost always housing. The majority of calls I get are almost. Now, the ones that move forward for discrimination reasons are a mix between employment and housing. And then, coming in third is public accommodations. But housing is a huge issue, and it's almost always somebody who's renting. It's always seems to go in that way. Well, for many reasons, right? Because they're not in control of so many aspects of the housing process. And so a lot of calls. A lot of them seem that they could be discrimination related, but a lot of them are exactly what you're talking about. There are people calling because they don't have heat. There are people calling because they have infestations. There are people calling because their roof is leaking. There are people calling because they don't have running water, which is heartbreaking. A lot of these people have little kids and families. The housing situation is just really dire in so many different places in Erie County. And that, I would say, is the calls I get the most. Yeah.
That's a really important role to fill.
Yeah.
And as you move on to the next important project in your life, teaching virtually and taking care of your son and being active in the Presque Isle Neighborhood Network or advocating for complete sidewalks.
Yes. Yeah.
That's definitely something.
6th Street.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's a major thoroughfare. It's right around Presque Isle. Those are all great things we look forward to and seeing the change make Erie a better place.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts you'd like to offer?
Just someone who's very involved in politics from different aspects, I always just like to say you should vote twice a year, every year. And, we have an election upcoming this fall, so make sure you're registered to vote. Check your polling place. If you're going to request a mail-in ballot, you can do it soon, now. And make sure you're voting so that your voice is heard, and make sure that we're working towards getting good people in there that want to do some legitimate good things.
Excellent. Yeah, voting is crucial. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in today to the Common Liberty Podcast. We've enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Kristy Gnibus, the current Commissioner for the Human Relations Commission. Thank you again, and be sure to like and subscribe and share our episode, and we'll see you next time. I'm Jeffrey.
I'm Eric. Load the clip, guys. Have a good one.
Load the clip. Have a good one.